I think the agreement was definitely quite a disappointment for developing countries and for smaller land states. We're bound to a treaty process, and the UN Convention on Climate Change and the Paris Agreement sets out really clear obligations from of what developed countries need to provide to developing countries in terms of finance, and that the 100 billion goal really needed to be a progression, which we didn't see at this COP. So instead, what we saw was that when you adjust it for inflation, we're not actually exceeding that goal of 100 billion. And even worse, we as developing countries are contributing to that 300 billion amount. And we know that from national communications on how countries aim to implement the Paris Agreement to ensure that we stay within that 1.5 degrees targets so that we don't feel the worst impacts of climate change, that the costed needs of implementing that was in the trillions. So we didn't really get to where we needed to get to. And we also failed on other items that we needed to shift to ensure that we stay within that survival target.
So what do you think was behind the failure by the international community that was present in Azerbaijan to secure that deal that developing countries were asking for?
That's a really good question. I think there's many factors at play, from the way that the presidency conducted the proceedings of this convention, of this COP, and also we've known for a long time that the appetite of developed countries to really provide that finance hasn't been there, and we saw that in full force here, which was really disappointing for all of us that have put so much effort into this process as well. And that is such a critical issue for us in the Pacific particularly.
Yeah, of course, and you know, the developing nations and Pacific Island nations were asking for that $1.3 trillion. What could that money have achieved had it been approved?
For small island states and developing countries alike, we've been really experiencing impacts at an accelerated rate. And for small island states, we're in this constant cycle of recovery, and we're paying for these impacts. We're paying for implementing our ambition as well. So from adaptation to mitigation through our own national budgets. So there isn't much support that's flowing because our countries are also different in terms of how you interpret risk. So for private sector investment, we're considered a risky investment, so we don't attract that kind of investment. So this money, if it was offered in the way we had envisioned as concessional finance, highly concessional on grants, it would have really helped to go towards ensuring that our communities could have had that bedrock of finance that would ensure us to be able to progress in terms of our ambition and protect our communities as well.
And what will the overall outcome of the COP29 in Azerbaijan be in terms of limiting global warming to within 1.5, or in the worst case scenario, 2 degrees Celsius of pre-industrial levels?
So again, a really great question, because we look at it in its entirety. Without that critical catalyst of climate finance, then the ambition that we would have sought from countries to start enhancing their ambition to that 1.5 degree target through how they communicate their national ambition, which call nationally determined contributions, we fear that we won't see that progression because they don't have the catalyst of climate finance there, but we're very hopeful that we will. And also because we didn't shift critical other agenda items on just transition, mitigation, and adaptation, the presidency didn't really succeed in terms of a very ambitious COP. But we're still hopeful because we have to hope that we'll have a climate-safe future for all.
Yeah, speaking of the COP, the very notion of this conference of parties, particularly with growing anxieties, and they were present in Azerbaijan over a Trump administration in the US, the US being the nation that's contributed the most greenhouse gases. Has the reputation of this COP gathering been damaged?
I don't think so. So this COP process is one of the only spaces where all nations, including small island states, have an equal voice. So it's an extremely important platform for us, and it's not something that we can see fail in that regard. And the last U.S. withdrawal was actually during the previous, extended during the previous COP29, which was the first ever small island developing states COP. So this isn't sort of new news, and U.S. hasn't always been very ambitious in any case. So we're hoping that we can see other countries step up, Australia included, and have a really strong outcome in the next COP and the COP following that.
Okay, and just a final question. You are, of course, in the South Korean city of Busan for discussions to secure an international treaty to curb plastic pollution. What's happening in Busan, and what's required to secure an agreement?
Yep, I am in Busan, and we're trying to agree a legally binding instrument to tackle plastic crisis across its entire life cycle. So starting with extraction of raw materials to manufacturing and disposal. And we're just starting that treaty process. So we're right on day one, and we're hoping that we can achieve that through ensuring that we get consensus across the board on these critical issues.
Yeah, okay. Wish you all the best in Busan. Dr. Sindra Sharma, thank you so much.
Thank you.